What's going on, fools? Yes, you're all fools. This video might cause a lot of backlash in the Nintendo community, but I'm sure there's a lot of you Nintendo fans out there who would agree with me on this, and that's that Zelda needs voice acting. Of course, this video is, my opinion and whatnot, but, hear me out before you flip your lid. First thing I want to talk about is how, when I was playing Skyward Sword, it really felt like a chore. And it was really boring to sit there and read all that scrolling text. Now, in other games that aren't so story heavy, for instance, the Mario games, the 3D and 2D Marios, for instance, I don't mind reading text in those games because the text you read are only like a couple of sentences. Like, bah ha ha, you can't stop me. He jumps away and then you go to the next level as Mario. You see what I'm saying? That's pretty much all you read. But in such a story-heavy, franchise like Zelda, and particularly, Skyward Sword, that was a very story-heavy game. Bunch of dialogue. You see what I'm saying? A lot of times I was sitting there, I was like, I don't want to read this text. I wish I could just sit back and just listen to these people. You see what I'm saying? And call me lazy or whatever, but Skyward Sword had tons and tons and tons of dialogue. And you have to sit there and read and read and read and read. And like I said, sometimes it really felt like a chore, to do that. It would have been easier to just sit back and just, listen to what they're saying. Now, I'm not saying Link has to talk. No, he doesn't have to talk. I'm not saying that. So don't jump to that conclusion. But I definitely think that everybody else, including Zelda, should talk. Everybody else needs to talk. They could leave Link silent. I'll be cool with that because I understand Nintendo does the whole, oh, we want you to be Link. We want you to be in Link's shoes. That's why he's silent, and that's why, you could change his name when you're making your save file or whatever. You see what I'm saying? So I understand that. So they can leave Link silent, but I think it's time for Zelda to evolve outside of, gameplay things. You see what I'm saying? Because, of course, Skyward Sword is a complete evolution in both art style and gameplay. Gameplay because your method of input is completely different. Whoever tells you that Skyward Sword is the same gameplay-wise is just flat out wrong, no questions asked, because you're saying that one-on-one motion controls is the same to pressing the A button, which makes no sense. But yeah, I'm talking about outside of gameplay things and dungeon structure and things like that. I think it needs to evolve with things like voice acting. Iwata and Miyamoto, they've always talked about Wii U iterations of their franchises, like Metroid and Zelda, for instance. And, even Sakurai with Smash Bros., he said, they're all saying that these Wii U installments of these franchises, we want to make these, like, really different. We want to take it to the next level with these Wii U installments. And I'm not saying voice acting would accomplish that alone, but that would, help a lot towards that goal. You see what I'm saying? So, yeah, I definitely think it's time for Zelda to have some voice acting. And I know a lot of you hardcore Zelda fans, because, I'm not a hardcore Zelda fan, which is probably why I'm saying this. Like I said, the only Zelda games I own is Ocarina of Time, Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword. But I know for a lot of you Zelda purists, you hardcore Zelda fans, I may be just speaking like blasphemy to you. But, and then you may think that it'll ruin the Zelda franchise. But look at Metroid Prime 3. Metroid Prime 1 and 2 had no voice acting. Metroid Prime 3, they kept Samus silent, yet everybody else talked. And no, I didn't see anybody complain about that. As a matter of fact, it was done really well. The voice acting was great, and it was really cool to finally see, other living things, that aren't Samus and aren't enemies, and, talking to Samus, and helping her out and stuff. You see what I'm saying? That was really cool. So I think that would really be cool for Zelda as well. So, and I should end the video right there. But I'll go ahead and say this, and this is going to sound crazy to a lot of you. I would prefer Link to be silent, but if they did give Link a voice and it was done well, I would not mind. And I know that might sound crazy to a lot of you Nintendo fans, to a lot of you hardcore Zelda fans, but like I said, I would prefer him to stay silent. All I'm saying is that, if they were to give him a voice and it was done well, that really wouldn't bother me much, because like I said, I'm not, hardcore Zelda like that. I think the games are great. Like I said, I'll buy a Zelda game, although I don't own all of them, whatever. But I'm not, into Zelda like that. When I see a trailer, I'm not like, oh my god, the next Zelda. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, it's just my opinion, guys. Let me know what you guys think down below about this. And I'll see you fools later. Peace.